guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go this definitely very long story, as you can see, about this young guy. He's 27 years old, who really has made quite the comeback in his life. A story here about a guy who is definitely the low man on the totem pole in high school, rejected by the gals. He started off as overweight, to a guy who really got himself together, lost a bunch of weight, focused on doing well in school, on his grind and purpose, and went from being the low man on the totem pole to 27 years old doing great, making really great money, doing what he loves, in great shape, all that type of thing. And I'm going to go over here a long one about a guy's journey. And many of you guys I know are in places that you don't like. Maybe a lot of you guys are unhappy with your jobs, unhappy with the way you look, out of shape, all sorts of things that you want improvement upon. This story will show you it can be done. And it goes to show you that anybody that has success goes through hardships and obstacles and roadblocks, but you can't give up. And you keep on pushing, you keep on trying, and sometimes have to really struggle, endure a lot of BS. You will get there, you know. The people that are really successful in life are really ones that just never quit or gave up and kept looking for different ways and kept pushing forward. So there's a really good one here to show you guys that, as well as many other humorous things along the way in his journey. And this guy, believe me, has made smackable moments, especially when it comes to girls. And he still needs work when it comes to the women. But on the success front, getting his life together, this guy's doing well, and I'm really happy to. And this is why I'm covering this very long story here. So this is why you guys that like to listen to my videos when you're doing a long drive to and from work or a long workout at the gym, there you go. You got darn near an hour story here that you can definitely enjoy. He says, hello SSM. I just want to say I've been a long-time fan and have been subscribed to your channel since 2020. I watched all your videos and I really appreciate the work that you do and put these kinds of stories out. I'm going to refer to myself as David for this story, but that's not my real name and none of the names here are real. Well, bro, I appreciate you supporting me from the beginning, back in the old days on the couch. I just want to share the story of some of what I've experienced throughout my life, since I've learned a lot of life lessons along the way. I'm definitely going to earn some slaps, but I'm doing much better now in 2024. Much better than I could have hoped for. For context, I'm probably on the younger side of your viewers. I was born 1996, so early, Gen Z or late millennial, depending on your definition. 1996, that's the year I graduated high school, bro. Holy effing shit. I'm getting old. Growing up, I had the picture-perfect conservative traditional lifestyle. My parents met in my hometown, fell in love, and got married young. They're still happily married, and I have one older brother. So I grew up in a very traditional house, in a tiny Midwestern town. My parents were both amazing. Mom was kind and caring and never caused drama, and my dad was strong and capable, but also always listened and offered good advice. My one and only gripe is that he raised me to be old school, blue-pilled when it comes to women. Smack to the dad. Well, because your dad lucked out with your mom, that's why, you know. So, which I'm glad. Your dad, of course, deserves a loving, loyal wife. Drama-free, mostly. There's no way there wasn't a little drama with your mom. They just probably hid it from you. I think that has caused me a lot of trouble in my life, but I've learned from it too, and I don't blame them at all, since that was how they grew up, and that's the only thing they know. I'm definitely very close to my parents and have always called a few times every week to check in on them. Well, good for you. You're a good son. I'm also very close to my brother, but to keep this story as concise as possible, I'm going to mostly focus on myself here. When I was a kid, I had a crippling fear of authority. Fear of authority? I just had a problem with authority as a kid. Not really sure what caused it, but I think partly because my father worked night shifts for many years when I was growing up, so the one time I would see or hear from him was when I was made too much noise and woke him up. Not that he ever raised his voice at me, but my dad is 6'2", 250, and he's still very intimidating. That's a big dude. I was always the quiet, good kid for my entire life and in school. I never spoke up, I got all A's, and never late to class. And I think I only went to 3 or 4 parties the entire time in high school. Dude, I was late for every class. I got so many demerits for being like 5 seconds late, 3 seconds late. It was ridiculous. I was a detention rat. I've got suspended many times in school. Barely graduated my senior year because I was screwing around the whole time. Yeah, I was that kid. Thank God I grew the hell up. No wonder my parents I drove them nuts. I've never been a drinker either, even at 29 years old, and I've been drunk less than 10 times in my life. I always either had a book or a Game Boy in my hand growing up. Around the time I was going into high school, I was 14 years old and weighed nearly 200 pounds. I was definitely obese, maybe not morbidly so, but definitely in bad shape. So you must not be that tall. I wore glasses, I was a gamer, acne, and so on. In my freshman year, I developed my first real crush on a girl we'll call Emma. Emma was kind of like me. We were both nerdy, quiet, good grades, and so on. We had 6 classes together that year, and I think, and due to the seating charts, we basically always sat next to each other. As pathetic as it sounds, I still remember what her shampoo smells like from our first hour class. Must have been some strong shampoo. But I never really acted on it. I never told anybody, but I'm sure it was obvious I was crushing on her. Yes, my self-esteem and confidence was in the trash at that time, and I knew she would say no, but I did have a plan. Had a plan, huh? Yeah, we all have a plan until it blows up in our face. At my school, you couldn't take a weight training class until you were a sophomore. I had a growth spurt towards the end of freshman year and dropped down to 175 with some diet changes and was feeling better. Wonderful. Good for you. I was going to wait until I had a year weight training under my belt, get my driver's license, and then I was going to ask her out. I was also fortunate to have an old muscle car that I was restoring with my dad, and I would have to be ready to have it drive when I turned 16. I still have that car, a 1970 Nova, and I love it so much. Dude, that's cool. And you had that car that you and your dad worked on together. That's a great bonding experience. My dad was a doctor. There was no working on cars in my household. We talked about the stock market and investing once I got to be 20 years old and started taking learning shit seriously. That's how we became close. I left it at home when I moved since the reliability wasn't good enough for 1,000 miles or more road trip, but I'll drive her again one day soon. I hope having the cool car, being in better shape, would help me out, but unfortunately it didn't work out that way. Bro, you could lose a bunch of weight, get yourself a 6-pack, drive a cool car, all that, but that doesn't mean shit if you have zero confidence in yourself and you stumble and mutter and, you have lousy body language, and women can sense you're not sure of yourself, and you get the point. Rather, after the end of the freshman year, Emma texted me out of the blue and asked, "Do you like me?" Uh-oh. I can tell you that was very surprising, and I'm still ashamed and embarrassed about how I handled the conversation. After having a brief moment of panic, I eventually said to myself, screw it, it's time to grow a pair. Just ask her out, what's the worst that can happen? And she texted you, "Do you like me?" That's not good. Well, I sent her that text, and then a few minutes later, I got a page-long text from her. She told me every single flaw I had, even every single way I wasn't good enough for her, and how could I even think she'd possibly say yes to someone like me? Who the fuck does this bitch think she is? I mean, oh my god. I knew when she said that text, "Do you like me?" That's it. It's over. What an a-hole. Like she doesn't have any flaws. Come on here, but you get a high school girl who thinks she's hot shit. I was still very naive at the time, so I never expected it would be that bad. The worst part is I just made it a million times worse. I told her that I was crying. Why would she say something like that? Smack. Why the... Dude. Ugh, honest to God. You told her you're crying? Really? How many fucking lame-ass movies, rom-coms did you watch to do that? See? You just proved that you're not remotely, and I want to say the word worthy, but in her mind, worthy of her. Telling her that you're crying there, making excuses. I mean, oh man. I would have just given her a cocky response, or not responded at all, and that would have been the end of it. That would have been better. She then took screenshots of our conversation and sent it to all her friends in the group chat, and then her friends started texting me too. I was waiting for that to come. Calling me all kinds of names, putting me down, and so on. It ended with typical drama. She wrote up a contract and tried to actually get me to sign it, agreeing that I would never think about her like that again. But what does that tell me? That tells me her perception of you is that you're a weak little bitch. Well, by you telling her you're crying, that demonstrated all that. But this is like a classic mean girl situation. High school mean girls. Well, I'm sure sooner or later life will come back to get her. And I'm sure that's hell being in high school. High school's a fucking nightmare. I can't imagine what's like nowadays with the texting and the cyberbullying and all that shit. Oh my god. Luckily, I found my spine here and told her to go screw herself and just cut my losses and went to sleep. Good, you redeemed yourself a little bit. I didn't talk to her for the rest of the sophomore year. Also, there were less than 100 students in my class and less than half of them were girls. That was my first heartbreak. Well, I wouldn't say it's a heartbreak. It's not like you're in a relationship with her. I would say you're serious disappointment. But unfortunately, I had worse experiences coming for me later in life. I continued to lift weights and got in pretty good shape, and I was happy with my body for once. I ended my senior year with a 225 bench, 300-pound squat, and a 315-pound deadlift at 5'11" and weighing 172. Dude, that's good. That's awesome. I continued getting good grades, got an excellent ACT score, plenty of scholarships, and then I left for college. The only thing that really happened was senior year. I asked a few girls out to prom and got rejected by all of them. Ugh. So it goes to show you can transform your body, but, you know, obviously there were things about you that still, you know, in that small high school. But also, the thing is, when it comes to high school, and I know you guys remember this, once you get put in a certain type of category, usually by elementary school, definitely by junior high, it is darn near impossible to get out of that category and other people's views. That's why getting out of high school and starting anew at a new college, that's so much better. Or whatever you do after high school. You couldn't pay me to go back in time and redo high. No. I would go back in time, my younger self, and I would whoop the ass of anybody, the people that effed with me when I was younger. And of course, I would take all my money and my parents' money and invest it in Apple and in Nvidia and all those companies and Amazon and stuff like that. I would do that, I might add, going back in time. But other than that, there's no going back in time. The week before prom, I was sitting at my normal lunch table playing on my phone. And as usual, the girls were all excited for prom and talking about it. One of the girls, we'll call Sarah, didn't have a date yet. She was blonde, blue eyes, very pretty, but also Mormon and very uptight, religious, and entitled. Oh, goody. One of Sarah's girlfriends suddenly said, "Hey, Sarah, why don't you just go with David to prom?" So you're her last resort. Oh, joy. Well, Sarah was taking a drink at the time, and I shit you not, it was just like out of a movie. She laughed so hard she shot milk out of her nose, and the whole cafeteria around us went quiet to stare as she laughed and choked. And I was sitting 4 feet away from her with my fork halfway to my mouth and my jaw dropped to the floor. I was so embarrassed and pissed off I couldn't even respond. But my face was bright red, and that was one of the angriest I ever been in my life. I just stood up, finished my food on the way to the tray return, and walked out of the cafeteria. Well, I would turn around and laugh at her for making a big mess of herself. Anyway, suffice to say, I ended high school without kissing a girl or going on a date or anything. After thinking about what I wanted to do for a long time, I eventually settled on a good engineering college. There you go. With my scholarships, my debt wouldn't be too bad, and the average starting salaries were good. The only major problems I had were that the college I chose, which was 4th or 5th in the nation by ranking, was 79% male, and it was known to be a very rigorous and difficult curriculum. Hey, if you're a smart guy, be up to the challenge. But I decided to invest in myself for the future, and I knew it would have a good future if I went there. So I decided to forego the partying schools and do what's best for the long term. Bro, you were light years ahead of everybody. Most young guys go to the party schools, try to reinvent themselves. Once I got to college, it was exactly what I thought it would be. Major sausage fest. Every gal that was a 5 or 6 instantly became an 8 or 9 on the campus. Every girl that was even somewhat attractive was mobbed by dudes. And even the grossest whales had multiple guys they were sleeping with. What a sign for the modern times. The 5 and 6s think they're all 9s and 10s. I had a few crushes throughout, but nothing really major happened until my junior year. I basically just went to class, went to the gym, focused hard on my diet and making good grades and good gains, and tried to avoid the depression and alcoholism that was rampant on the campus. In my junior year, I started working a part-time job on campus, and there was a cute gal who worked with me. We will call her Veronica. Veronica would be a 7 or 8 in most places, but basically a solid 9 to 9.5 there. We were in the same major, had multiple classes together, and had talked a few times, but at work, we were interacting daily. Well, remember, you're at college now, so your past is behind you in terms of who that person you were, that caste, if you will, in high school, right? 'Cause that's what it's kind of like, you know? And, so you have an opportunity to start over. But this time, I was much more cautious and jaded, and I knew even before that this was She was a walking red flag. She was very smart, but obviously ruthless. She complained about her boyfriend all the time and occasionally would say stuff to me like, "You're so nice. You need to go out and talk to girls more. You'd be so popular." Why are you listening to your fucking problems about her boyfriend? You should say shit like, if you thought she was a hottie, you should say something like, let's stop talking about that guy. Let's go hang out. Something like that. I've known all along that I still suffer from nice guy syndrome. I just don't have it in me to emotionally manipulate women like the pickup artists all say to do. Well, you need to fight fire with fire, my friend. Love is a battlefield. Is it Pat Benatar? I can't remember. Luckily, I was wise enough to not ask her out when she broke up with her boyfriend, even though I got a few hints. By this time, I had put in some respectable muscle, even though, unfortunately, I never grew past 5'11". Not that I'm complaining too much, since I'm only American, women seem to be obsessed with 6 feet tall. Well, stop bitching, I'm 5'10", so you're taller than me, dude. But I'll be honest, after spending so much time with her daily, and being so deprived for a long time, I did develop lust, if not a crush. I strongly disliked her personality. Like I said, she was ruthless and downright cold to people who couldn't benefit her. But the physical attraction was there. Oh my god, it must have been slim pickings on your campus. Jeez, if you want to get some action, just get a hooker. I fought it through, and I did not end up asking her out. I was able to justify it by saying we're graduating soon, and I'll just hurt myself more, and that was a very wise decision, it turns out. Good. Why would you want to be with the Ice Queen anyway? Fucking Miss Slytherin there. After almost 2 years of that, the final semester came. We only had one class together. By now, I'd bulked up considerably, and I was 195 with visible abs, a 335 bench, 450 squat, and a 525 deadlift. Bro, that's badass. You're solid. And you're like 22. We would occasionally study together, but only once or twice a month at that. Now, this is where my life starts to get interesting, because here I started working part-time for a startup company, building highly specialized software in the industry I chose to work in. So our man here is focused on his school, his grind, getting in great shape, and now he's going to go to an internship that can definitely help his life, and it will, as you're going to see throughout this story. I was working remotely, like this was 2018, making the eBay money I ever had in my life at $30 an hour as a contractor. This, I think he meant the easy money. This was also about the time my dad quit his corporate job, also in the same industry, and I chose to follow his footsteps. And he partnered with the guy who hired me as a contractor. I have to keep this obscure since we could be identified pretty easily, but it's a very well high-paying industry if you get the right job. That's great, man. By the way, guys, thank you for bearing with the noisy rain here. The dry season of South Florida, which I didn't know there was a dry season until I moved here, and of course the sprinklers were fucking broken. I had to have those fixed. The dry season's coming to an end, so there's more rain. So bear with me. Show must go on. Of course, it didn't rain yesterday, and yesterday I took off. Now, within this industry, my dad is a bit of a rock star. He had won 2 national awards, which were both very big deals. He was a spokesman and committee board member for these national conventions and associations. He made a lot of contacts doing all this and built a name for himself. This is how he met his future business partner. My dad hired him to build a software tool while he was still a manager in his old company, and once they realized how useful and powerful it was, they decided to go into business together. I tagged along for the ride for my own LLC, and that had played a huge role in my life in the past few years especially. Dude, that's great. And by the way, it's not hard to form an LLC. If you guys want to start businesses out there, it's not that difficult at all. The software was highly specialized and niche, using AI, Internet of Things technologies, advanced sensors, very complex and technical stuff, and I'm very proud to have played a role in its development. AI was in the early stages of development back then. Look how things are going now. Anyway, I continued working part-time until my contract abruptly ended and continued into my last semester. Still haven't kissed a girl, but I have been in a couple of dates at least. You still haven't kissed a girl at this point? You're 22, 23. I'm sure there are dudes that are watching this that haven't either. At this point, literally, it's worth getting a freaking hooker. You just to fucking kiss it. Well, you don't want to kiss a hooker. Forget that. No kissing hookers. You can let them suck your, you know what, or F them, but no kissing them. I'm sure you met some girl you can fucking kiss. You go to a club or a bar and just, you know, find a drunk girl or something. Get out of your system. Towards the end of the semester, I was trying to schedule a graduation party with some of my friends, and they were still there. Ended up being that there was no one besides Veronica could have wanted to show up. I've been planning to have a barbecue, but it was winter and it was just the two of us. So I asked her if she wanted to just go to the local Mexican restaurant, which was both of us our favorite place to eat, and she said yes. The day we were supposed to go, I texted her beforehand asking her if she was still free, and she said back something like, what are you talking about? When were we going to eat? Like I had completely slipped her mind. I reminded her, but I was thinking about, all right, no big deal, it happens, I'll just go on my own. Well, it shows just how important you were to her. She couldn't even remember, That's when she texted back and hits me with, well, I would go with you, but I have a date with these two hot guys I met last weekend. She's going on a date with two guys. I'm going to drive to their city and have a threesomething with them instead, haha. This chick had been blue-balling me for almost 2 years, telling me how she doesn't sleep with guys before the third date. All this nonsense that I knew was BS from the start, but this still shocked me. This was probably the angriest I'd ever been in my life. I wasn't even sad, I was just angry. So all those years you're hanging out with her and listening to her bullshit problems about her boyfriend or boyfriends, and now she's blowing you out. It's not like you're going to go have a date. You're just going to grab some Mexican food before you left because you studied together. And she's blowing you off, and she said she's going off to have a threesome with two guys. Maybe that's true, or she was just doing it just to mess with you. Another asshole you can part ways with. This is the only time in my life where I actually saw red, and when I went to look in the mirror, my blood pressure had gotten so high that I had burst some of the capillaries in my eyes, making them bloodshot. Dude, it's a chick. I already been to the gym that day, but I wanted to get back for a second. Full-length workout just to try to vent it out. The only thing I said back to her was, go fuck yourself, and I blocked her on every app. That was the last time I ever talked or saw her again. I can't blame you for saying that, but I wouldn't even give it a nice satisfaction. I just would have ghosted her right then and there. And if you need to blow out some steam, get some MMA gloves or boxing gloves. And if your gym or whatever has a punching bag, that's where you can blow out some steam. Beat the shit out of it. Once you're exhausted, you'll feel pretty good. Anyhow, I graduated college and then unfortunately had my job offer rescinded. I moved back with my parents and mostly just continued playing video games, lifting weights, and job searching. I also reconnected with a few of my old friends from high school and started hanging out. I was still being hit with the virgin shaming constantly, which is always something that got under my skin. Well, I started going to the bars with a few of them, once or twice a month, and then July, that summer, I had something really bad happen to me. Oh, I know where this is going. I was at one of the popular bars in the city, about an hour away from where I lived, and it was me and one of my friends we'll call Adam. Adam had gotten out of the Marines and was the definition of a weak mind, strong back, but he was a good dude mostly. Very strong, nothing bothered him, but definitely not smart, and also a major horn dog. He'd been stationed in Southern California, and he had lots of stories about the women there. I can only imagine the women in Southern California, the ones that weren't man-hating feminists. Anyway, we approached a small group of gals, introduced ourselves, and started talking. I immediately gravitated towards the hot brunette girl named Kathy, and we clicked instantly. We were both engineers, had a lot in common, and so on. We talked for at least 2 or 3 hours. I bought her a drink, and she bought me a drink as well, and we all agreed to go back to the house she was renting with her 2 sorority sisters. At the time, I was slightly drunk, but I was sobered up quickly. That's an important thing to note here. We got an Uber, stopped at a liquor store on the way to buy the girls their fruity drinks they wanted, and then went to their house. So this guy's thinking, finally, I'm getting some ass for once. See, he's hanging out with his Marine friend who's obviously good with women. And so they instantly think, okay, this guy's just like his friend. Once we got there, the very first thing I saw was 2 of the most disgusting whales I've ever seen in my life sitting on the couch. They're probably like the girls from your old college. I asked where Kathy was, the girl I had been talking to all night, and they said she went straight to bed and was already asleep. And man, what a disappointment that was. I just wanted to go back home after that, but my friend convinced me to stay, and he wasn't picky on who he slept with. Well, you want to bet that girl brought you both back just to nail her fat-ass friends. Anyway, the 2 girls wanted to play a card game and do some shots, but I was quickly losing my good mood, so I only had half a shot when it was my turn. And we eventually just started talking a bit, and I was trying to decide if I really wanted to sleep with one of them or not. Well, I got up to go to the bathroom, and when I got back, my friend had taken the slightly smaller whale to her room and was already getting busy, leaving me awkwardly standing in the kitchen with whale number 2. She did offer me a drink of water, which I chugged because I didn't want a headache the next morning. But when I finished the drink, I noticed it had a slightly grainy texture in the water, kind of like creatine. Uh-oh. Sounds like it was spiked. I didn't say anything. I didn't think anything of it. Then she said to come to her room in about 15 minutes while she got ready. I almost left right there, but at the last minute, I decided to just get it over with. At least then I wouldn't be a virgin, right? You know what? If it takes you porking a fat chick to get it over and done with, then so be it. But the thing in the water, Again, I'd been buzzed when I got there, but I was fully able to walk straight and communicate and hadn't had anything else to drink in an hour, and so that's when it all happened in. My memory got a little fuzzy here, but I remember all of a sudden I got super dizzy and a little nauseous. She freaking spiked the drink, dude. They're both so big, they figured there's no way you'd want to nail that, so the whale spiked the drink. My memory got a little fuzzy, but I remember all of a sudden I got super dizzy and a little nauseous. I had to hold on to the wall for support to make it to her room, and I was super confused. I somehow managed to make it into her room where the lights were out and laid down in the bed next to her and my head swimming. And I just remember all 300 pounds of her getting on top of me, and she started to make out with me. And I'd be like, ugh, she's got chicken McNuggets on her breath, ugh. She helped me take my clothes off, and I'm still very confused and disoriented, but I do remember just saying the word condom, over and over until she finally put on me, since I couldn't manage it at the time. Luckily, I brought those with me. Anyway, I proceeded to lose my virginity that way, and I just closed my eyes and let it happen. I don't remember how long it took, but it wasn't much, and my sensitive bits were completely numb and didn't even feel anything. Well, if you had some 300-pound hippopotamus on you, of course you're not going to feel anything because you've just been crushed. After she was finished, she immediately laid down and started snoring within seconds. Yeah, snoring like a grizzly bear, dreaming about Happy Meals. And that was when my stomach finally had enough, and I remember crawling to the bathroom and puking my guts out. I remember standing up and looking in the mirror, vomit around my mouth, and I saw blood around my crotch, which freaked me out a lot. I thought for sure I had hurt her. I was going to go to jail. All these bad thoughts, but then I did realize I was probably just period blood. Still, I can't begin to describe the shame I felt right there. Shame, how about disgust? She freaking spiked your drink, dude. You know, that's criminal. And if a guy did that to a woman, his ass, believe me, most of the time they would, well, if they felt brave enough to admit it happened, that guy would be in prison. You need to take a shower and wash all that shit off and get out of there. I felt a little better after puking and washing up, but I could still barely stumble to get my clothes off the floor. And I definitely wasn't sharing a bed with her. Well, she might eat you in her sleep. So I put my pants on and passed out on the couch for a few hours. Then my friend and I took an Uber back to our cars and I went home. After I woken up, I proceeded to get the worst headache and stomachache in my life. I made it home, got in the shower, and immediately started puking again. I went back to sleep after drinking a few glasses of water. That was one of the sickest I've ever been in my life. Dude, you should have been calling the fucking cops. But then again, they probably say, how do you prove it, you know? Psycho. It was only after I woke up that I ever crossed my mind that I could have been drugged. I never in my life ever heard of the woman drugging the man, and definitely never thought it could happen to me. But I think it must have what happened. I never told a single person about any of this. Nobody knows, and not even my friend knew after when he asked how it was. Yeah, well, now tens of thousands of dudes around the world know what happened. And guys, guess what? This happens. It's criminal. It can happen to guys as well. Anyway, I spent the next months being hard on myself about having so many difficulties finding a good job. Nosy just blew this off. He's like, all right, I got drugged by the fat chick and lost my virginity to some freaking hippo, and now, okay, on back to my job hunt. I'm glad, obviously, nothing else happened, but that should have been reported. Anyway, eventually, I almost ran out of money. I decided I needed some kind of income, so I printed out a resume and went to a local factory and asked if they're hiring laborers. They were absolutely delighted to have me, and when they saw me, I had an engineering degree. They actually offered to bump up my pay from $11.50 an hour to $18 if I came to work for them. Okay. It was a very dirty, unsafe factory with a reputation for burnout, and the owner had bribed the local OSHA rep to look the other way about a few injuries and issues that had occurred. So not a great place to be. I worked there for 4 months, waking up at 4 o'clock every day and building modular steel buildings for them to pay my student loans and bills. Bro, I'm sure that wasn't fun, but you know, you did what you had to do. You need a fucking job. You need money. A lot of people, particularly your generation, wouldn't do jack shit. Any kind of hard labor because they figured that's beneath me. That's being a man. Good for you. I finally caught a lucky break and received a job offer from a contact of my father's in the same industry, of course. And the hiring manager thought I was a perfect fit and hired me on the spot. Wonderful. I then moved to Florida to work at this company on the innovation team. Another Floridian. We, of course, had an ulterior motive. My dad and his business partner had continued developing the software tools for this industry, so I was striving to be something of a salesman from the inside, with the end goal of selling them several $1 million worth of software licenses. I got in, made the right contacts, started working at it, typing up business cases, kissing asses, and doing everything I could to try to get this done. Smack! Don't kiss ass. You can be the guy that other guys can respect, but don't kiss ass. Nobody likes an ass kisser. Unfortunately, along the way, I stepped on some toes, I guess, and my first boss, who was the best possible boss in the world, loved working for him, got fired for insider trading, and then the person I went to work for was the exact opposite. We'll call him George. George was the opposite of my first boss, and very opposed to introducing any kind of new responsibility or ownership within the department. It would make his job harder to manage this type of new software tool in addition to all his other responsibilities. And he hated the idea of a change, even if it was good for the company. Then he's a terrible manager, and he shouldn't be fucking fired. You need innovators. If you're not innovating as a company, you're going to die on the vine. He gave me my first bad review, told me I wasn't allowed to even communicate with vendors anymore, and signed me to support desk only. The problem is that the job only took up about 30 minutes of my day. It was a very light workload. I was doing all these jobs on the clock, trying to find improvements for the company, and he was punishing me for it. I knew corporate America was shitty like that, but I also staked my entire early career on this, and I was about to change direction to be a professional password resetter. Unfortunately, George still managed to set me back a year. So that was around 2019 through 2021. Now we get to 2022. This is when his life really, our guy here who had a tough childhood and a lot of bullshit happened to him, his life is really turned around here, which we all love. I continued working for George, but I found other people to discuss the project sale with, but things moved too slow. I had managed to purchase a house in 2020 by some miracle using the part-time money I earned from working for the startup company and my own salary. And I moved to a nice area in a nice house and got to enjoy the 50% increase in home value. So you bought it right before what happened and the market went nuts because interest rates pretty much went down to zero and all that. That was nice. Talk about great timing. During those times, I was still going to the gym every day, but not going out as much, and COVID made things weird. I asked out a few gals, went on a few dates, but nothing ever really clicked, so I just kept doing my thing on my own, mostly. There's got to be things that you're just saying and doing that just turn girls off. No offense, you know. You're doing well for yourself, you seem like a cool guy, you hit the gym, but there's something there that obviously, you know, no offense, you need to evaluate. You know, maybe you're coming off as maybe a little desperate or unsure of yourself. I don't know what you're doing, but there's got to be something you're doing that's, I know girls can be a-holes, but if you're doing well for yourself at this point, I want you to think about that. A little self-reflection, my friend. Eventually, I made a new friend. We'll call her Giselle, and she was from Estonia. Okay, obviously not Tom Brady's ex. She was the most gorgeous woman that I've ever met in my life, and she was a traveling consultant, always in a new country and going all over the place. I'm not going to lie, I fell head over heels for this girl. We were talking every day, FaceTiming each other, all that. Smack! Now I see some of the areas you're going wrong. Every day, it's too much. When it comes to women, I've learned over the years, truly, as the saying goes, less is more. See if this girl you're interested in, plan a fucking date and go out then. Don't be FaceTiming every day. And I know she's going away for business, but even then, let her go away on business and wonder about you, miss you, and all that shit, you know. Seriously. She ended up being the one to ask me out, and that was one of the happiest memories I have. Unfortunately, she wasn't local and couldn't visit much. That ended up being the only time I ever really got to meet her in person, even though we communicated daily. I started losing a bit of hope with the salesman tactic and started trying to find a remote job with the idea being that I could travel with her a bit, get to see the new parts of the world, and try out the digital nomad lifestyle for a bit. I knew this was dumb. I knew I was being naive, but in my defense, I hit her with every single shit test I could think of that I had learned from the past 10 years. Estonia is a very traditional, conservative, religious country, next door to Russia, in the Balkans. She was a very intelligent and down-to-earth kind of gal, everything I had ever hoped to find, really. You're doing all this for one piece of ass, dude. Smack! Ay, ay, ay. She passed every single shit test I hit with her, and while I don't believe in ever getting married, at least not with an American legal system, I would definitely have loved to explore dating her long-term at least. But here's where things got worse. Around that summer, about 7 months after we first met, she started having problems with her father. She worked for her father, and they essentially worked as a small mercenary company. Okay. In Estonia, they suffered under the USSR, even in recent memory. So they really hate Russia over there. Well, it turns out Russia offered them a lot of money to hire them, and Giselle really hated that. She had gone to the local government, worked for months to build a contract with them instead of bringing their soldiers back home, and her father shot it down because it paid less. She decided to quit that job, and she flew to Japan for 2 weeks and told me she would talk to me when she got back after she had time to cool off. Okay. I was worried, of course, and I hated seeing her in pain like that, but there's nothing I could do but there for her when she got back. So I waited, and a month goes by with no word. I messaged her a few times, but no answer. Well, clearly, either she's dead or you weren't that important to her. Then one day she changed her profile picture, and I knew she was back home again, so I messaged her again. And I got no answer. It was then I started to realize I think she was lying to me and had blocked me. I put my phone down and walked away and didn't try messaging her for another 2 weeks. But my curiosity got the better of me, and I made a new account and messaged her again while texting her at the same time and my normal account. Within 30 seconds, she had responded back asking who I was on my new account and left unread on my main account, and I knew for sure. Dude, of course she's avoiding you. Everything's there showing that she doesn't want to talk to you. Boy, did that hurt me something awful. I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I cried again. She and Emma, the first girl that broke my heart, were the only 2 times I ever cried over a woman. But none of them were your girlfriends. You know, Emma, the girl from high school who showed all her friends your text, was just a mean girl. And you know, high school, your hormones are going crazy and people can hurt you. But none of these girls you were involved with. And I could tell with this situation with this Miss Estonia girl that you were just jumped in with both feet and everything. Finally, one's paying attention to me. I think you really come off too strong with women and probably say and do a lot of things that just, you know. Anyway, I messaged her back asking why she blocked me, and I got a long story summarizing all that had happened. She kept saying she was confused, needed more time, and was super depressed and thinking about ending it all and didn't want to hurt me. Yeah, sure. I definitely didn't want that, and I tried as hard as I could to keep her talking, to help her out with that. Smack! Stop being that nice guy listening to the girl's problems. Of course, if she says she wants to think about ending herself, you know, you don't want that to happen, but that could be just a bunch of bullshit. You're back to that guy listening to remember Veronica from college? You're listening to all her problems with the guys. You're that nice guy. I lost 3 friends from college to 2 offing themselves since I graduated at this point in time, so it's something that really hit me close to home. You lost 3 friends from college? That's a lot for someone to know that ended themselves. Good God, dude. We started talking again for a couple weeks, and then she stopped responding. Shocker. Then a month or 2 goes by, me still being worried the whole time, but I decided to give her space. Then I texted her again around October. Smack! This is why you get treated like shit by girls. You're doing so well in your professional life and with the gym, but with women? Oh, God. Then I texted her again around October, and it turns out her father had disowned her. Her mother had divorced and separated when she was a kid, and her only brother was an alcoholic who couldn't keep a job, and she only had a couple of friends. So she was very alone in her life. Boo-hoo. She just using you for your attention and all that. And Mr. Nice Guy, White Knight here, has to save her. Save yourself, dude. She then sent me a very long text, and she told me the names of all her favorite restaurants. The names of some of her friends, where I should go live and stay in Estonia if I ever wanted to move and work there, all these details. No, you want to see me, you can come to the USA. Then she told me And then she told me was going to decide if she wanted to be alive or not that weekend, but that she would call me first to say goodbye if she decided to end that. Oh my God, this chick's crazy. And that was the last time I ever heard from her. I cried again for the second or third time, but the conversation hurt me more than anything else I ever experienced in my life. Well, clearly, you're unbelievably lonely because you're getting involved with some gal who you just talk to a whole lot and is across the world. And, you know, you got a lot of work on yourself, man, in the department when it comes to women, if that's what you want, obviously. Anyway, she never called me back, and I spent basically every waking hour trying to figure out some way to contact her friends or family. Because of the app I use, I didn't actually have any way of contacting her. And Estonia doesn't have the white pages online, where you can just type in a name into Google and get all the info like in America. Even with all the info digging on the internet, I could not find a single person to talk to. I hated feeling that helpless. Around Christmas time, my dad's business partner surprised me with a gift. To thank me for all my hard work, he offered to pay for me to fly to Estonia on vacation. This is a terrible idea. This is where I definitely deserve a hard slap from USSM. Dude, I've already been slapping you. I ended up waiting until it was more convenient with work and flew to Estonia in March of 2023. I stayed in Germany for a few days, visited Belgium, and then flew to Estonia to live for 2 weeks in the neighborhood where she had lived. This is nuts. This is like stalker shit. If you want to go to Europe, go to Europe. If you want to go to Eastern Europe, go to Eastern Europe. But do it for you, not for some wacko. I went to the places she told me about and tried asking about her. But if they did know her, they weren't willing to tell the strange American. It was still a big city, so finding one person by name was an impossible task. You're just walking on the street. Do you know Giselle? No. Do you know Giselle? No. Eventually, I did probably the worst thing I could have done. I went to the local cemetery. So standing outside the cemetery gate, about to walk in, it's March, and in Estonia it's very cold, and it was raining that day and windy. I had jeans and a coat on, and I just could not bring myself to walk in. I've been planning on asking for death records to see if her name was there or not, since it's all recorded, but I could not bring myself to do it. I think I stood there outside at least 15-20 minutes just staring at the front doors. Then I had an epiphany. Let's hope it's a good one. Whether she was dead or alive doesn't matter anymore. No shit. Either way, she chose to be selfish, hurt me especially, and I had to protect myself. I said I didn't need the closure after all and went back to my Airbnb and tried to enjoy the rest of my trip. There's an idea. Estonia is a really cool country, and they have an interesting history, and it's very affordable for Americans, with low crime even though it's close to Russia. Once I have a remote job, I could easily see myself exploring Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania for a while. Well, my grandfather was from Latvia, and all my life I thought I was 25% Latvian, but they did the 23andMe DNA thing. My mom did that, and it turns out that she's not half Latvian, she's half Estonian. So I am a quarter Estonian. I found that out a couple years ago. There you go. I'm like a quarter English, more than 25% Irish, a quarter Estonian, and a bunch of other shit thrown in there. This typical American. Yay, Estonia. Any Estonians out there, let's hear you shout out in the comment section. Also, the women are drop dead gorgeous. I didn't see a single fat person the entire time I was there, and everyone I spoke with was very kind and polite. Even in the city centers, cars rarely honked at each other, and there was no shouting or yelling. It was frankly eerie, and having lived in St. Louis for a year and then living in a major city in Florida. Yeah, they like to honk down here, but where I live, you got lots of people from New York and Jersey here, and of course, honking is just what they do. Anyway, after that, I went back home to Florida and my job. Well, it's about time. I hope you've been born again. Going back in time, a little to February 2022, right after I started talking to Giselle, we had a new senior manager hired in my department. I'm going to call her Hag. She was the most evil feminist bee I ever met in my life. She got knocked up by a Marine and was ruthless and cold-hearted as they come. Did she have blue hair? She was about 5'2" and looked anorexic, maybe 90 pounds at most, and of course was an insufferable single MOM. Shocker. Rumor around the office was that she got the job by sleeping with a VP. Not that anybody can confirm that, but it would not surprise me. Anytime you talk to her about anything, she always put you down, no matter what. I assume it was a tactic to try to remind us that she was the superior. Basically, everyone hated her. We only had 2 other women in the entire department, and she was always ranting about the toxic white male environment. I don't know how that crap is legal, but somehow it is. Because the companies don't want to get into a legal battle, so they just deal with it, which they shouldn't. Anyway, the very first conversation I had with her, within 5 minutes, she was telling me that my generation had a lot of problems, were lazy, entitled, and incompetent, and she wouldn't stand for it with me. Well, I can't entirely blame her for saying that, because no offense, but your generation has a pretty bad fucking reputation. I'm in my mid-40s, and I know lots of people that work across all industries in the U.S., and they say the same fucking thing about your generation. They were in 2010, they were saying it about the millennials. And now in 2024, they say it about the millennials, but especially Gen Z. And I can begin to imagine when Gen A gets into the working stages. My nephews were visiting a few weeks ago. They're Gen Z, but they had their shit together. They're early 20s. And they said, oh, you think our generation's bad? Watch out for Gen A coming up, because they can see their friends, little brothers and little sisters. So I actually don't blame her there. She told me that I need to start working more hours, staying late, and kicking ass, and sacrificing more, or I would never get anywhere in her department. I actually commend her for her honesty. Most people would never outright say it, but I got the message that I was hated and my professional career was dead at the moment she got hired. Well, if it's that bad, you can always get a new work there and get a new job. I started casually searching for a job, but also at the same time, I started getting more hope about selling the software that my dad and business partner had developed, so I decided to risk it and stick it out. Mid-year reviews come, and no surprise, I get put on the performance improvement plan with some BS about my lack of performance and not trying hard enough. It's funny because my supervisor actually wrote my mid-year review, gave me a good rating, and then the hag overrode it and input of her own comments. She was only in our office 3 days that entire year. She spent her entire time at corporate. Well, maybe there was something your boss, the one that wrote positive things that work with you day in, day out, could have said to override her unless she was above him. Anyway, I ignored that and just focused on collecting the easy paycheck and trying to get the software sold. I make some progress, but it's slow. Now, in early 2023, right before I left for Europe, I had presented my business case to the corporate board of the directors and executives. That's interesting that they actually saw you. It must be a smaller company. I built the budget, presented and proved the cost savings, and gave a full 1-hour presentation on the benefits of the software tools, and was able to successfully answer the Q&A I received afterwards, even from the VP. And I work for a very big company, tens of thousands of employees, so that was a big deal. When I came back, though, I decided I had enough of dealing with hag, working that unfulfilling job, and not making hardly any money. So you're working there to make your shit pay, but you're also working on the side business, the thing with your dad and everything. $75,000 a year in that part of Florida only netted me about $400 a month after my expenses, and I'm a very frugal man with minimal student loans and a paid-off car. So I decided to sell my house, which I made a over $100,000 profit on in those 2.5 years, so that I had it. But I did a 3-month rental with a friend nearby to buy more time to try and keep the project going and hopefully get the money moving. So you sold your place, made a profit, and you used that money to invest in this business. Again, this being the corporate world, someone is always out to screw you. It turns out there was another startup company that the company I worked for had already invested in. They made a technically similar but far inferior tool and basically lied to the leaders, saying they could accomplish the same things. They chose to pay them instead of my dad and our business to partner. So I ended up handing in my 2 weeks' notice and moved back with my parents and continued searching for better jobs. I also decided to take some of the time off and explore the world a little. And in September, I flew to Argentina, where I lived for a month. Wow, what an adventure. I went on like 7 dates. It was much easier and more fun in Florida, my home state had ever been. The last girl ended up being my friend with benefits for about 3 weeks before I left, and she was a very solid 8. Well, thank the Lord you're actually getting a chick that you can hook up with and that you're not acting crazy upon, and she's not 300 pounds. Okay, you've learned some things since Miss Estonia. She even baked me a cheesecake, cooked me breakfast, and even thought I was the rich American. She never let me pay for anything for her. For context, most people in Argentina make about the equivalent of $400 a month. It was a very cheap place for us to live. Argentina's a fucking mess, unfortunately. I came back home, felt much better, and then we had some good news. My old company in Florida found out that the other startup lied to them, and they decided to not pursue them at all. So we went back to the board. We were back on board. And in December, I got excellent news. I got a truly amazing job offer being a traveling project contractor within my industry. I just started last week at the beginning of February, and I'm now making $160,000 a year at 27 years old and an approximate $180,000 current net worth of equities in my portfolio, with only $8,000 left in my student loans as my only debt. Bro, that's great. So you work with you have your main job, but you have the side thing working with your dad and helping him out until obviously something takes off. But hey, that's wonderful. You're doing something you love. 160 grand a year at 27 years old, and you're obviously in Florida, so who can be not happy there? And 180 grand net worth. This is great. In January, our luck had really turned for the better. Me and my dad have been starting to lose hope since our business endeavors seemed to be dead in the water. But we recently had some very promising news, and I think will turn out well for us. We're presenting to the old leadership again, suing my previous company that I was at, and one of my dad's friends out of the blue offered him a senior director job at a major company within our industry, making over 250 grand a year in salary alone. Sweet. He says salary alone. There's obviously stock options and shit like that, I'm assuming. That position would also allow my dad to have access to the checkbook for projects, potentially allowing us to double dip. Ha! They also offer contracting, so after my current contract is over, there's a strong probability he could use those connections there to cherry pick from the very best contracts in the country through that company. So I could easily start to earn even more money later this year. We're also in negotiations with other major companies to partner with us and use their sales groups to try to push our products around the world. There's a very real possibility my dad will be very rich, very successful man soon, and we can be all living very comfortably, at least I hope. In other words, if the business they have is he uses his position in that big company to cherry pick who they use for contracts and everything, and use your own company. I want to close up by saying this. If there's one thing that helped me out more than anything in my life, it's been the gym. It kept me sane, let me vent, and it was my therapist when I needed it. It was my drive, my discipline. I cannot remember starting a fitness journey of some kind to all the men that see this. I cannot recommend. Hopefully my story has helped someone. I shortened this down as much as I could, but it's a long one. Yeah, dude, it's a long one. I don't know how long it was before. Thank you for what you do, SSM. You really help out a lot of people, and your stories in the channel have definitely helped me out. It was quite therapeutic writing this all out and sharing it like this, so thank you for that as well. Well, bro, you've come a long way. You still need a lot of work when it comes to the ladies. Good God. And if I don't get me started on that. But in terms of success, you were the overweight kid, and you lost the weight hitting the gym, and you've been consistent with the workouts all these years. Great. It's been your therapist. That's awesome. And you busted your butt in school, and you're doing well for yourself. It's still a little confusing with the work thing, but it sounds like you got the side business with your dad and his partner, and you started up and trying to get contracts for, but you both do your own thing, and you're doing well. You're doing fantastic for your age. That's awesome. Good for you. You never gave up. And I would say what this whole thing is, guys, like I said in the beginning, it's to show you can start off low down the totem pole and treated like shit in high school, made fun of by the girls and all that, and you stick to your grind and doing well in school or whatever you're trying to pursue excellence in, and exercise and try. You're going to get somewhere in life. And that's the main thing in this whole video, why I did it here. But bro, when it comes to the women, you need work. Obviously something you're doing, you come off too strong with them, and they obviously immediately put you in the friend zone category and jerk you around as all these, this is proven. I'm glad you were nailing some chick from Argentina, but she probably thought you were going to be the rich white man that was going to take her away from Argentina. Very likely. But you had fun with her. So keep focusing on your grind. If you're a relationship guy, learn from your mistakes. Really stop trying to be that nice guy that listens to all the girls' problems, which you admit you did with Miss Estonia and Veronica. And try to just work on yourself. That's all I can say in terms of being more confident, not being so nice, so accommodating, and because there's got to be something you're saying and doing and a vibe you're putting out this immediately having the girls think you're that nice guy they can tell all their problems to and jerk around. I don't want that to happen to you anymore. But aside from that, you're doing great. And guys, back to how he lost his virginity by the 300-pound hippopotamus and obviously spiked his drink. If that ever happens to you guys, you need to pursue with the police. I don't know how far you're going to get because believe all women, but still. But anyhow, bro, I'm glad you're doing well, and I wish you all the best. So guys, you bust your butt, you keep trying, you can make something yourself. But you're going to have roadblocks in your way to success. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And guys, you got a great story to share, email me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just give me some time to get to it, and I definitely will. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.